Ryan.
Hello, Rachel.
How you doing?
I'm excited.
Ooh.
As the famous Australian personality and celebrity and salesman Big Kev used to say, I'm excited. Rachel's giving me the roll of the eyes because she naturally thought in this moment that I would say I'm excited in that type of voice. And you know what? I'm glad. I'm glad you thought that. But how about yourself, Rachel? New season, new episode, and a new year. Everything is popping off. So how are you doing on this fine day?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling much better than most of our cast is.
Oh, they're feeling down. There's sadness, there's nighttime drinking, but no nighttime swimming, a winning combination, as we both know.
Mm-hmm.
The cast of Babylon 5 in terms of the characters, they're all in a low point right now, which makes for viewership very exciting. Huh?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But does it make it yum-yum? Well, we'll have to find out as we get to the very end of the discussion. Now, Rachel, could you inform everybody what we do here on YumYum5?
YumYum5 is where we are rewatching the sci-fi television series of the thing.
Of the thing? Sorry, what was that? I can't hear. The thing? Are we doing the thing, the film?
No.
The thing, the game.
Here on YumYum5, we are rewatching Babylon 5, which is a 90s sci-fi television show.
We're going one episode at a time. We're reviewing it, revisiting them, and that does mean we're busting open the can of spoilers.
We are bringing the Yum perspective.
The Australian podcast as well. The only Australian Babylon 5 podcast to ever exist. I'm putting that down now. Ever. There's never going to be another one.
Okay, well,
we're history.
I reserve.
We're in the year of fire. The year of pain. The year of joy. Sorry. We're gonna have to talk about the opening credits in a moment. But we're in the opening of our show where we tell you now why Yum Yum. Rachel, why? Why did you do this?
No, I didn't do this. You can do this. You can explain yum.
Yum Yum. Yes, Yum Yum was a pilot in the Star Wars films that helped save the day. We all love Yum Yum. No, Yum Yum is a line of dialogue from the television series Star Trek Discovery. That is the show that we started podcasting about, and in that show they had a line of dialogue that was so absurd, so nonsensical, so out of the box that we couldn't help but be captivated by it. And so we bring it with us everywhere we go, to funerals, to baptisms, to the podcast. We make sure to remind everyone that this happened. A woman licked her lips sexily and replied to a question with yum yum. No. This Star Trek show didn't come out in 1966. No, this came out in the last few years, so just bathe in that knowledge for the moment, okay? But let's just get into it, Rachel. We're in a new season of Babylon 5, Season 4, a season that is often heralded as the best, if not one of, at least. It's all killer, no filler is the rule of thumb many use for Season 4, and especially for the first half dozen episodes. It is just bam, 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 bam. So how does it all kick off? Where do we start?
We start with Hour of the Wolf.
Woof.
Have you ever heard of the Hour of the Wolf?
No.
My father told me about it. It's a time between 3 and 4 in the morning. You can't sleep, and all you can see is the troubles and the problems and the ways that your life should have gone but didn't. All you can hear is the sound of your own heart.
MIA, Sheridan and Garibaldi. Ivanova launches a search for the station's commander, but she gets no help from
From what?
from the Alliance members who remember well the ominous adage that no one returns from Zahadum.
Now, just for those newcomers to the pod, that was the DVD description. Rachel just didn't come up with that by herself. She just didn't come from the heart with that. That was written by J. Michael Straczynski himself. He wrote that and put that on the DVDs, and I'm going to spoil things even further. I read a bunch of them for season 4 because I was curious, and season 4, whatever happened there, they felt the need to be more bizarre and more hyper-specific within the summaries, and we'll get to hear that with each upcoming episode. But the Hour of the Wolf. Now, for myself, my history is not too dissimilar to my viewership of it right now, which is I am constantly thrown off by how confident each season of Babylon 5 is. Each opening episode of Babylon 5 just grabs you by the shoulders and tells you we're not messing around, okay? What about you, Rachel? The Hour of the Wolf. Season 3 leaves you on a cliffhanger, and Season 4 comes in to pick up some of the pieces.
Yes, it doesn't immediately solve things, because that's not how we do things now on Babylon 5.
No.
I remember just, like, on the first viewing, just wanting to get through the Hour of the Wolf because we didn't get answers. We just got more questions.
And new stories.
Yeah. And it's just like, yes, you're setting up a whole new season, but you left me with all of these questions already. I want some fucking answers. I just want to get to the juicy part. And I don't think I slowed down enough and appreciated this episode, which is something that I did really try and do on this watch through. Like, I got you to pause it at least once so that I could just soak it in, because it is such a straightforward episode, but everything is done in a way that I feel is elevated. So it's the best of the best for what it could be.
New season, new year, and new opening credits.
I miss Ivanova already, but it is a good opener.
What do you like about it?
I like that we're getting the different voices.
Now everybody gets a chance to talk.
And
I love
it's just
that.
like it's everybody cooperating together and a reflection of what has come before as well as what's happening now.
I am a big fan of the Season 4 opener. It's not my favorite. I think Season 3's music and the monologue is superior to it, but I just am a appreciator of this nonetheless. I like that each cast member and character gets a moment to talk and have something to say. And
that each of their lines make sense for them as characters.
The elation I get that the little people, the people like Veer and Zach and Lita get to have a voice in the show, where in previous times that's their roles they are the smaller voices. They are cast members. Lita is now freshly joining the cast properly, but nonetheless, she was still a character that we knew, and Veer and Zach and even Lanier are always supporting characters, and yeah, they've been in the opening credits for a couple of seasons or a few seasons, but I really
and they
do
all get
like,
a moment in this episode as well.
They all get a moment within the episode.
I'm talking
yeah.
over you a lot because I'm
But
excited.
I really do like the Season 4. I like what's being said. I like the sentiment behind it. I like each one of the things that the people go over. And when it swells into the year and the place, it is so matter of fact now. The wistful longing of the Sinclair era opening of this is no longer. It is just, this is what you're here for now, okay? This isn't the wanderers, entrepreneurs, and the last of the Babylon stations. And it can be a dangerous... No, we're past that now. Now we are just in Babylon 5. We're in the 4th season. And there are so many elements at play here. So let's start off with one of the smaller things here. One of the, I would say it is a scene that is there to put a pin in what will be an ongoing storyline going forward, which is the stuff relating to Garibaldi, specifically when G'Kar and Zach interact.
Well, we are introduced to the idea that, like, you know, people are also acknowledging that Garibaldi's gone fucking missing.
Yeah. But there's so many other things that they have to worry about.
So many other things, and it's just like he's down the pecking order. And we get that from G'Kar. So then
his opening monologue.
G'Kar is found in Garibaldi's quarters by Zach. And they have a fun little, but also like it's sad,
sweet.
Like it's bittersweet, I guess.
It's funny
the conversation that they have with, it's like the Egyptian god of frustration talking about the Daffy Duck poster.
Well, let's rewind first before we get to the poster, because that's where we all want to go. It starts off immediately perfect because Zach's here. Love Zach. We all love Zach. We're big Zach heads. And he comes into Garibaldi's quarters, which have been opened, and we see in a mirror a silhouette wearing the Garibaldi hat. And you're like, Garibaldi somehow? No.
Chief?
Lights on, it's G'Kar, and he's wearing the hat, and it doesn't fit his big alien head.
No!
And I just love the image of G'Kar wearing this stupid detective hat that Garibaldi owns, and him holding it gingerly in conversation because he thinks it's very important. Like, he ascribes a deeper meaning to the hat. And I absolutely love the energy played from Andreas Katsoulis in the scene where there's so many different emotional states. There's humor being played here. There's almost like an innocent, childlike whimsy and not fully understanding because he's an alien. That's being played throughout the scene. So
the fact that he is a foreigner in this environment.
So he is putting a lot of emphasis on things that we, and specifically Zach and Garibaldi, would not. But it makes G'Kar very endearing in the scene. It's not just laugh at G'Kar because he's a silly alien who doesn't understand, or let's laugh at Data in Star Trek Next Gen because he made a faux pas because he's an android that doesn't understand humans.
It doesn't feel like we're meant to be laughing at him.
No.
Which it easily could have been.
It's because he cares. He cares so much about Garibaldi that he looks at the Daffy Duck poster and he looks at the hat and he looks at his bedroom and he puts so much more into it. And I just want to say, as a viewer, we have talked about that with our viewership where we're so happy to see the Daffy Duck poster, and we have a laugh about how Garibaldi, anytime he goes undercover, he grabs out that stupid hat. And I don't know if this is deliberate, but from my viewing of it on this watch, I had a big smile on my face because it almost felt like a commentary on me watching it, going, hey, you look at the things that we put in the set, like Sheridan's oranges or Ivanov's like little thing next to her lamp and Garibaldi's hat and the Daffy Duck poster, and you have like feelings about that, right? You have thoughts on that? So do we. We're going to acknowledge that. And I just really, really like how Andres Katsoulis rides all the different waves of energies and emotions within it, because he subtly goes from being funny to being really sincere and sad and dramatic and with purpose. There's just a masterclass of subtlety here. This is a very different performance of Jakar than what we started out with in The Gathering or in Midnight on the Firing Line.
It takes a rare kind of wisdom to accept change and redemption in another. Many would refuse, seeing only what was, not what is. Mr. Garibaldi gave me that chance, and I must repay him.
A really hard-hitting thing that happens within this that always makes this a memorable scene to me, and it is not the humor of the Daffy Duck poster, which we will talk about, but it is that Jakar just says that Mr. Garibaldi, in amongst all of the chaos here, has been forgotten, and Zach, and just the way that Jeff Conway delivers the line, he just sharply and cuts into that and defends that statement of, no, he hasn't been forgotten. We still care. It's just we need to do these other things first. And Garibaldi would want that. It's just, you could see within Zach there that that statement was an affront to him. But he needed to actually talk it through. And I always remember the scene because of just that exchange. It makes me feel sad that Garibaldi isn't here, even though the episode works perfectly without Sheridan or Garibaldi. Yet that line, that delivery alone makes me miss Garibaldi more than his actual lack of presence within the 45 minutes. What do you think about all of that?
I think that that's a very interesting way to examine it, because the episode wouldn't be the episode if those two characters were here. The tone would be completely different, and not just because the subject of it would change. Now you just got me thinking, and I don't know how to translate those thoughts.
Well, that's Babylon 5 for you, huh? It has things that leave you lingering for a while, and that is the strength of being able to come back to it, where we have all of these pieces and yet we can still play with them and put them together and come up with new things for each other and for ourselves. It all culminates with finally someone addresses the Daffy Duck poster in the room. Nobody's addressed it. It's just been in the background. We the audience know why it's there, because he likes Duck Dodgers and he likes Looney Tunes and he really is a Daffy Duck man, but it's never been referenced. Dodger, she never referenced it. Franklin, he's never referenced it, but thankfully Jakar wants to know what it's all about. And of course, he wants to feel Garibaldi's soul or something like that. And it's just like, yeah, his love for Duck Dodgers and Daffy Duck is a part of him. It's his second favorite thing in the universe, but is it a household god? And Zach is such a loser in a good way, because he's a dork. Because there's that moment earlier where he's asked, do you think Garibaldi's dead or alive? And he just dismisses it. He doesn't want to answer that. He can't really come to terms with it, and so he shrouds that in, oh, my thoughts don't matter. What I think doesn't really matter, and Jakar gives him the wise wisdom of the spiritual Jakar of our thoughts always matter, they form the universe. And you even get a little bit more of that Zach attitude here, where he's going to tell Jakar that no, it's a cartoon, but then he realizes, you know what? Yeah, he kind of is a god. He kind of is a household god for Garibaldi. Yeah, he's the god of frustration. Garibaldi does worship him, so he evokes him.
I was studying this image. Is it one of his household gods?
Oh, that's that. Yeah, well, in a way, I suppose it is. It's sort of the Egyptian god of frustration.
Most appropriate. Thank you.
We have an addition.
An addition? There's a new person. Oh, is it Warren Keffer? He's back from the dead.
No,
oh, is
it
it
is
a new
somebody
network?
who's
No.
back, though.
Someone. Takashima? She finally came back and they're finally going to
And it
reference
is
her.
somebody from the pilot.
Dr. Kyle! I didn't know you were here. I'd love to see you again, Dr. Kyle. It's him, right? No?
No, Ryan, you screamed out yes when you saw this person in the credits. So who was it?
Lita!
Lita's back, baby!
I cannot stress how much I've been looking forward to season 4 because I have not been able to fully unload my unbridled love for Lita Alexander as a character. I fucking love Lita. I think she's such a fun, interesting, scary, sad, tragic, dangerous, thrilling character. And we get her here. She's a part of the cast. Now, do you remember your overall reactions to Lita being a part of the opening credits? Because in a way, we've known her for 2 seasons, but she's been very on and
Yes.
off. And
I was like, oh, okay, she's going to be in there. Stable. Like, she's not going to be flitting in and out. She's here.
Lita's here. And you were happy with that?
Yes. I was intrigued on first viewing. On repeat viewings, I'm like, yeah, baby, she's back. She's going to be a bad.
Intrigued is a great way to describe it because she's a very mysterious character. We don't know where her allegiances lie. We don't know what has happened to her fully. We even get it teased in this episode that there's more going on between you and the Vorlons. They've done certain things and you're not going to talk about it. It's like, yeah, that's the usual around here. And I completely agree. When I first saw that she was in the opening credits, I just said, finally, because I felt bad for the actress in the previous, in season 3, where she wasn't in it enough to be a main cast member, yet she felt like she was in it as much as Marcus. And so I was like, oh, come on, give her more. And they are giving her more. And so when season 4 rolled around, I was just happy that she was in the opening credits, and that told me they're going to give this actress and this character stuff to do this season. More time, an arc perhaps, and Lita gets some happenings going on, and in this one...
And we know that we can trust it even...
Oh yeah, we know we can trust it because it isn't Warren Keffer this time.
Yes, that
we're past the Kefdom.
Yeah.
But Lita is in this episode, and she's having a rough time with evil Kosh.
Yeah, I feel like he makes it hurt on purpose.
Oh, he's a bastard.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about feelings or pleasures or pains.
But I
That's
think
all
he
irrelevant. It's all irrelevant.
But I think he takes joy in hurting Lita because I think the new Kosh still blames her a lot for OG Kosh's death.
You do?
I do think so.
I look at it that he treats her like he treats everyone else, which is you're inferior and you're irrelevant to me.
Yeah,
so
I think
I don't give
that
a shit
as well. But it's like,
you think there's a personal edge?
yeah, like just the way that he responds when she's like, it feels different.
Oh, there's a definite sexual edge to that.
Yes.
He's inside of her and he takes himself out rather roughly and quick, and it hurts her, and he doesn't give a shit. There's a definite abusive relationship being formed here in the subtext.
Yes.
And
well, we've seen it in the text as well. Like one of their first interactions, he strangles her.
that is very much a true thing. But even then, they weren't really in much of a relationship at that point. That was like one of their first meetings that they had. And I want to put a pause on the talk about the abusive relationship between Kosh and Lita for some future episodes where they're going to dig into it more. But it is an element of season 4 that is confronting when you first view it, because we knew who Kosh was. We knew he was an asshole and mysterious and dangerous, but we had a certain understanding of the type he was. While this Kosh is bringing something that is very uncomfortable forward, that type of nasty behavior, and it just gives the season a much crueler, nastier, meaner, and darker energy to it, where you open up with one of the things you open up with Lita in is her transferring energies between the two, and she basically says in without fully saying it that it's like there's just a very strong sexual kind of connotation to it, and just how uncaring and abusive he is towards her, and just that is it gets under your skin, doesn't it? Just how Lita is throughout this episode, where we've only known her for what? Let's be generous and say 5 episodes of the show at this point, maybe 6.
And I want to bring up something that I found interesting at like this particular viewing, and I don't know if I really noticed it or appreciated it in this way before, but the way that they change her costuming and hair when she's with Kosh compared to when she's on the White Star. When she's with Kosh, she's got her hair done in a very psycho way.
Yeah, she has a almost 1940s German aesthetic
and
to her,
and the like her outfit is much more tailored. Whereas
when she's on the White Star, she looks like a smuggler who's
Yeah.
about to go on a kick-ass adventure where she's about to
She
grab a rope.
she
and
looks
lasso someone.
comfortable.
She looks awesome.
She looks great.
She's a badass.
And I was just like, oh, this is a reflection of the control and the expectations that are on her, where she does not get to be herself. She's not independent. And they're doing all of these things visually to evoke that. And that was reinforced for me again when Ivanova asks, like, there's more that's going on that you're not telling me.
And she just gives her a look.
Yeah, she doesn't say it.
She can't.
She can't say it. She looks like she's uncomfortable even thinking about it.
The way this Kosh is played and shown, and how he interacts and talks to and about everyone else, gives us a very clear understanding that this guy is a danger, that he is, if at most, apathetic, but most likely dangerous and cruel. And we've known Lita for 5, maybe 6 episodes at this point, and it is very uncomfortable, but Patricia Tallman does a wonderful job in the episode of showing us a character who, again, we barely know her. Like, that's a part of the appeal of she's mysterious. But what we do know is she's a very strong-willed character. She's no nonsense, and she's got to go out there and do the things. But her relationship with this Kosh has made her a husk. There's so many scenes where Lita is just staring off into the distance, and she's pale as a ghost, and
Those
she's
dark circles.
and
when
every
he's left
time
her?
she talks, you can tell that the character is having to control what they're saying, because if they actually said what they want to say, they could get in trouble. And that's dark. Like, that's dark. And it's not by accident. This is a character who is teamed up with the Vorlons, and they're going to be an antagonistic presence within this season very shortly. And she's a telepath character, and we're going to see how that develops in the show. And I was really reminded here in this episode when she goes to talk to Ivanova, and we get the hour of the wolf scene, that, oh yeah, Lita has no friends. Like, nobody's Lita's friend. Nobody knows her. nobody cares about her outside of just the the base level of you care for another living person, but they don't have any strong relationship with her. She is truly alone, and all she really does have is the Kosh, the Vorlons. They've given her so much, and that
a very odd sort of, I don't know if it's a reflection or an alternative expression of what Londo says about the more power you get, the less friends you have. It's only people you want things from or want things from you.
And that's what Lita is. She's a resource for everybody. She's a tool.
Because she's a telepath.
And we even see that here within the hour of the wolf portion of the episode, where they think John is dead and they need to go to Zahadum, where Lita volunteers her services, and that's it. It's services. I can do this thing for you. I can be of value in this way because I have powers and I have been supercharged. And Ivanova is going through a lot in the episode. She's in a very traumatic place herself, but
Claudia does such a
she does an amazing job. But there's just
it's amazing.
But it's ever so clear that Lita is going through a lot herself, but nobody knows Lita well enough to really care more. Like, it's so blatant, like, what you see of her visually, that this is a person stuck in a relationship that is harmful.
They're not being malicious.
They just have other things on their plate.
Yeah.
Like Zach said, these things are more important right now. We'll deal with these other things later when these things are solved.
It's a long shot. I won't be able to establish contact, but it might be enough for me to sense if he is alive or not.
This link between you and the Vorlons, there's more to it than you're telling me, isn't there? Typical. But you know what? Right now, I don't care.
Do you want to tell us all about Ivanova and how she was in this episode and how it all comes to the title of the episode, The Hour of the Wolf?
She is walking around also being a husk of her former self. Like, the shot of her walking down the hallway during Jakar's monologue is, like, I find it heartbreaking to see her so broken.
And then when she's in the council chambers, she's turning on the aggressive Ivanova persona to, like, double because she has to get something to happen.
Yeah.
So if I just yell at them more...
I need you to do this. This can't fall apart. It's almost the opposite of what we've seen when she's dabbled in diplomatic matters. She's usually somebody to think through everything first before she acts.
This was a lot.
Yeah.
It just... Claudia Christian's acting is superb. It really holds a lot of this together. All of the acting is superb in this episode.
Really, like, we'll get to the Lockley stuff, but, like, this episode in particular, I'm just like, oh, what season 5 could have been if she was.
Well, we can't. We'll have to live in that world when we get to season 5.
Yeah.
There's the council scene when she's having to scream at them and yell at them and try to get them to band together and insulting them, and she's going through that. And later on when she's talking to Veer and she has to turn away so she can crack and cry and just let it out without fully falling into bits. What I wanted to praise about the direction and the acting and the writing, just the general construction of this, is it was the perfect balance of somebody having to push down their emotions to get the job done whilst also clearly being emotionally devastated and compromised. That is, on a dramatic level, juicy to watch. We have seen Babylon 5 in the past, as well as other shows that we watch, whether it is Star Trek Discovery or something else, where they fall too heavily on one side or the other, where you go, do you not have emotions? Are you just this husk that walks around without this inflicting anything upon you? Or they are too emotional, and you say, how are they still allowed to do their job? They're compromising everything. Ivanova isn't compromising what she has to do, but she is overstepping her bounds at times. But you get it. You're in her shoes throughout a lot of the episode. You
feel for her.
You feel for her. You just want these goofy aliens to listen to Ivanova, because don't they know the Babylon 5 mantra?
Ivanova is God.
Ivanova is always right, and Ivanova is God. But we lead later on into the episode. Lita comes into her quarters, and Ivanova is sitting there, and she is
drinking vodka.
And we get the Hour of the Wolf. And wow. It's been a little while since we've had like an Ivanova monologue where it isn't just a voiceover monologue. We've had a few other Ivanova monologues where that was the case, like in Interludes and Examinations, say, where we start off with just Claudia Christian doing a voiceover. Here, we get an unflinching conversation and monologue where it's just her talking to somebody else in the room and giving us, the thing I like, which is Ivanova is a sad Russian. It is just a nice touching of base with that, because it feels like it's been a little while since we've really dabbled with that. And I got to applaud Babylon 5 for stopping in dabbling with that, because you could easily fall into the Star Trek thing of what is Chekhov other than he is Russian. And Ivanova was very much like that in the first season, where it's like Ivanova is Russian. And so coming back to that, and her father. So do you want to open up to us about what the Hour of the Wolf entails? And I meant that on purpose, entails, because tail. Like a wolf.
Yeah.
Woof, woof.
Ivanova tells this very bitter story about her father, of how he would describe the hour between 3 and 4 a.m. when you can't sleep and all you can do is focus on the bad things.
How your life could have been different, and the mistakes you've made, and
all of these different things. It's just only negative thoughts. You can't sleep.
An existential dread.
Yeah.
Your heart is all you can hear, the beating of it.
And explaining that he would used to, like when he was going through times like this, he would pour himself a big glass of vodka.
Right before bed, a big glass for the wolf itself.
And then have 3
little
ones in case she had cubs while she was waiting outside.
And
then she's like, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It
doesn't work. As she's drinking vodka, as she says this, it doesn't work. She's a barrel of fun, isn't she, Ivanova, huh? Her family. Every time we touch upon her family, it just makes me go, yeah, you make a lot of sense as a character every time we talk about your family, huh? But I get it. I understand it. We've all been there, haven't we? Where you have that moment where you're tossing and turning at night, and it is you thinking about your existence, about yourself. Are you good enough? I wish I did that differently. Or just you feel your own body. Like I've been definitely there where I've felt my own heartbeat, and I've just been unsettled by that, or it just has been a focus of attention of just being able to hear my own heartbeat late at night, and just the reminder that you are a flawed human being and
trapped in your body.
trapped in your body and your shortcomings. And Ivanova's been living that for 6-7 days because Sheridan's been gone, and she doesn't know how to pick up those pieces. And it's a great mirror to, or parallel to, the season 2 opener as well, where in the season 2 opener we saw what she was like when Sinclair was gone and how she was walking around the corridors and she was yelling at people, and it was very funny. It was like, I'm stressed out, but I'm holding it together. Here, she's stressed out and she's barely holding it together. And it is costing her as an individual so much. And we still end the episode where once they've gone to try and see if Sheridan is still alive and they think that he isn't, we come back to her still not sleeping, still up, and her having to come to terms with that.
Accept.
He's gone, and that it's now up to her to lead, and it's now up to her to find the direction where we'll be going forward. And we love Ivanova as a character. She's a very strong character, a wonderful female character in this genre of television, but one of the things that makes her compelling is that those shortcomings, those failings, and those insecurities and flaws about her. And what I like about early season 4 is seeing Ivanova have to come into grips with what it is like to be a leader, because in season 2 and season 3, it was always Sheridan assigning it to her like homework or like a curiosity or a little hobby or a little project. Like, what was Ivanova's role in season 3? She was the master of secrets or whatever it was when she found out about Via's little escapades, and it was a cutesy thing. And now those training wheels are off, and we're seeing how she manages to ride that bike, and she's not clean and competent and skilled at it.
What matters now is finishing the work that he began. I have some ideas how to do that, but I'm going to need some help. I think I know where to go to find it. I have to let him go and just get on with the work. I hope it's what he would have wanted.
What I like about the League of Non-Aligned Worlds is oftentimes they're treated like fools. We, the viewer, look at them as idiots or irrational, but I actually felt for them in this episode. Even though I'm against them, I understood them, because you had the contrast of Kosh, where Kosh's attitude was, we do absolutely nothing, because it means nothing. This is just going to be what it is. If they disband, fine. Let them die. The strongest will survive this attitude, and that is morally grotesque, but at least with the League of Non-Aligned Worlds, you as a viewer can understand them. You go, okay, you're scared, you're worried, you're feeling powerless, and so you're trying to grab power in any way you can, even though we, the viewer, would rather you do what Ivanova said, because she's always right. She is God. But then eventually they bring up the point of, you want us to go to Zahadum to save your boyfriend. You believe he's still alive. What happens if he isn't alive and we all just die there with him? Who does that serve? So there's even more of a justification for why the League of Non-Aligned Worlds has their avenue of not just fear, but they have legitimate grievances with Delenn and Ivanova, where they're operating on hope, and in a war or in war times, that isn't enough, and it shouldn't always be the thing that drives at you. But it doesn't stop Delenn and Lita and Ivanova flying off to Zahadum to check if our homeboy Sheridan is alive. And I just want to ask you, overall, did you miss Sheridan in this episode?
No. But that's, like, I know he comes back. Like, I think that is a part of it. Because
But you miss Garibaldi. You know he comes back, and you know he's going to be a prick all season.
Not keen for that to start.
I think there's a disconnect minorly within the episode when it comes to emotionally missing Sheridan. You miss Sheridan in the fact that he's the leader of this great war and he's going to be the winner of it, rather than me missing the man himself. Am I being too unfair with that statement?
No, I get what you mean. That like, I think it would have been. Yeah, I miss Sheridan's purpose, not his personality. Where I miss Garibaldi's personality, not his presence.
Is it because they focused on the emotional toll it took on Ivanova rather than the emotional toll it took on Delenn? That is present, but it is not.
It's
the driver of it all.
Ivanova comes first in this episode.
So do you think that makes it a bit more at a distance because she misses her friend and colleague rather than Delenn missing the love of her life?
Yeah, and what we do get of that is we spend less time with Delenn's suffering.
Well, it's on
even
the side.
Though it's there. Yeah,
it's on when they go on the rescue mission on the White Star. It's still from the focus of this is for Ivanova. Ivanova's in charge. Ivanova's making the calls. Ivanova feels guilty about almost getting them killed right now. It's through Ivanova's lens. And although I do think that it makes the actual absence of Sheridan on an emotional level a little bit more hollow, I like that we are doing it through Ivanova rather than Delenn, because we get a lot of Delenn. We get a lot of Delenn, and we will get more of Delenn, and we get a lot of her, and we got a lot of her last season. I just am appreciative that we're getting Ivanova-focused actions.
Yeah, I really like that too. And I want to bring up something that I don't think I've thought about in the context of this episode before, which is that we've seen Delenn mourn Sheridan already. When they're on Centauri Prime.
And also at the end of Zahar-Doom, where she's weeping at the fact that he went anyway. Just that image alone gave us enough.
Yeah.
And so we need to give...
It's more interesting to see it from a different person's perspective. And also the way that Delenn is making herself suffer. Through starving herself.
Yeah, that's brutal.
So the fasting and the prayer aspect, like she's doubling down on her beliefs, and trying to use that as a tether, whereas Ivanova is feeling adrift.
I break it down like this: when they go on the away mission, they are flying in their spaceship to a foreign planet that's in the outer reaches of the known galaxy. They have a superpowered lady whose eyes go black, and she's using her mind powers as Delenn is holding her hand and all of that. That there is very good sci-fi-y stuff, but it doesn't get me in any way in the heart or the mind as the humanity that you know of when somebody's gone. You go to their room and you sit there. And you feel like, if I sit here with their stuff, with where they slept, with where they lived, maybe I'll get something out of this that could help me find them or connect with them on a level that I didn't before. So there's that. But hey, the away mission's still fun. Talking about cool images, 3 badass ladies on the White Star just commanding it with Dweeb Lanier in the background and pushing a button every 2 minutes.
And also one of the other pilots is a female Mbryo.
It's a really cool image. And Lita has the black eyes. Badass.
Fucking
awesome.
Cool.
Scary.
Cool.
They almost get hypnotized to fly down there, but then they fly away. And Sheridan didn't make it. Except for he did make it. Oh, did you see that coming? I mean, other than he's in the opening credits, did you actually think that we would confirm within this episode that he was alive? Because they leave it right to the end.
I thought we would get it earlier, honestly.
earlier or in another episode because they leave it so late. They don't leave it to the very end. They leave it to like the third last scene.
It's gotta be here. It's gotta be here. Like they won't. I wasn't. I wasn't able to believe that they wouldn't address it head on in this episode. I never thought that they would wait a couple of episodes.
Did you think Lorian was going to be a bad guy or a good guy just from this? Because he's just this guy that comes over.
I thought he was going to be bad.
Because he's on Zahadin?
He's on Zahadin!
And he's some weird alien?
Yeah, and it's just like, why are you in this fucking pit? Well, I thought that he wasn't going to be real. Like, I was just like, oh, John's dying brain is having an hallucination, because that's a big trope.
I was led down similar roads of thought as you were, but this is something that was highlighted in the very last shot of the episode, but I remembered this so viscerally on my first watch, which is, he's not going to be a bad guy. He has such kind eyes. That was my reaction of this guy. At first, I'm like, who the fuck is this? Why are we? He's this weird, long-fingered alien guy at the center of this evil planet. But even though he gives this strange look at the end where he puts his hand against his face and it's this loving yet inspecting look, there's just something about the contact lenses and the makeup and Wayne Alexander's eyes in this role where there's just a softness to them. There's a kindness there, and I felt that immediately.
The pendant on his forehead helps with that in a weird way.
And the warm lighting
softening him.
And the warm lighting of the flame gives him this kinder look than you could easily frame him with a villainous look. You could still have this design and make him look far more villainous, but there's just something about how he is shot and how he expresses his emotions through those eyes that made me hyper aware on that first viewing. Maybe this guy's not going to be bad.
Yeah.
He looks like a sweet person.
Yeah. But I also really get why other people, when they get back to Babylon 5, are so suspicious of him.
He's a weird alien.
He's a fucking weird alien.
Earth first.
Who are you? Who are you? How did I get here? You were born. Why am I alive? Well, that is the question, isn't it?
I know our younglings are pounding on the table with their fists going, how are you not talking about Centauri Prime? How are you? We have to leave it to the end, because it is fantastic.
We gotta kill the Emperor Via.
We gotta kill the Emperor Via. No, before we even get to the Emperor, I don't think in Babylon 5 I ever cheered as loud as when that fucking freak minister, who we find out later his name is Verini, came back, and then I realized, oh, he's going to keep coming back in this storyline. They can't not keep having this little guy running around, because I adored that performance in Sick Transit Via. I thought this guy was such a weird little flamboyant guy, and there are those performers, those actors who make choices that immediately click with you, and yet you know these are choices that would not work in any other context and or could be repellent to other viewers. Yet when he rocked up and he's doing his hand gestures and the voice and the lilting lyrical way that he delivers his lines, I cheered so hard. And because also he's getting to talk to Londo. Last time he talked to Via, who was Mr. Nervy and I don't want to talk to you, I'm afraid. He's talking to Londo, who's also got an extravagant voice and personality. And I was so happy that we were going to get Centauri Prime shenanigans as well, because the Centauri are just a race of people that naturally you are drawn to as a viewer, because they have so many historical parallels of the Roman Empire or the British Empire, all these other, glorious historical places and cultures that you can mine from. And so you can understand the quick shorthands of each of these characters. So when the minister rocked up, I'm like, oh, I get a vibe of what you are. Yeah, I know. And then when they started to unfurl it even more with the emperor, and then we got to learn that, oh, the minister is this guy who is driven mad by the fact that he is stuck in the kingdom of a madman, and if he talks, if he does anything wrong, he could be killed at any moment. So he just is Mr. Keep your lips sealed there, Londo. Don't talk about it, and everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. He's the guy that says everything's going to be fine as everything's burning around them. I love that type of character. I love this type of character. Oh, yes. But Rachel, for yourself, how do you feel about the Londo aspect of the episode? Because he is physically at a distance. He's separated from the rest of the story.
Yes. And I feel so strongly about Jakar's line about Londo in the opening monologue of, I think he might be the loneliest person in the universe.
Truly, and he even has to drag Veer towards him so that he doesn't have to be the loneliest. He has to have a friend. And let's talk about the Emperor. Did you clock it immediately, or was it something that slowly dawned on you?
That he was fucking insane?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was pretty quick. I think I was suspicious from his first second on screen, and by the end of his first line, I was like, "Oh, he's a fucking nut job." Okay,
Is it because he had the short crest?
No, like it was the way that he carried himself.
The short
and the
crest really
intonation.
really set me off. I'm like, I was like, Londo, you can't do that. You can't do that. I was a fool. It took me a little bit of time to clock how insane he was because, and I want to know your thoughts on this now, looking at it as in this moment in time where he comes across in his opening scene as almost this young progressive new blood in the Centauri royal court, where he's saying we shouldn't be bound by the decadence of tradition and we should embrace what the common folk have and look at their lives and actually intermingle with them and see what it's like. He has the talking points of somebody that we would more favorably look at. And so there was a moment when I first viewed it where I was disarmed because of the short crest and the way he held himself, but also because of what he was saying was so opposite of what we had been led to believe about the Centauri royal court, and even this character leading up to this point, that I was thrown for a loop. And so his strange behavior as an actor, the choices he made, weren't immediately obvious to me because all of these dissonant elements were being thrown at me at the same time. So it was a constant state of, okay. All right. And then when it was like the obvious reveals of his madness, I'm like, oh yeah, obviously, duh. But what do you think about how he presents himself at the very beginning? Because like with a lot of crazy people there, especially ones who are doing insidious things, they have to put upon a certain aura to people to begin with before they let loose of what they're really about. So what did you think about that? Because we always look at Kataja as like the fun guy with the heads on the table and all of that. But at first, he has all of these talking points. What did you think of that?
It gets overshadowed. Gets overshadowed immediately because he goes just off the handle at the drop of a hat. Like, when Londo touches him, and then all of a sudden Londo has a knife at his throat.
That's scenes later, though.
Yes, but, like, that's within this episode.
Oh, yes, but I meant, like, within the context of this episode to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, but, like, that is a part of it.
Yeah, it gets, like, completely watered away.
Like, it is not long into meeting Katasha. Like, you were talking about the fact that we've known Lita for several episodes. It's like, we've known Katasha for, like, less than 10 minutes before he's doing that to Londo.
Oh, and before he's already given over a portion of Centauri Prime to the Shadows because he is insane. Yeah, I just wanted to focus in on the introduction of a character because those are ever so important. And you're right, the way the character is carrying himself, you get from visual cues of what he is. You go, oh, he's the crazy party. If he's not the crazy emperor, he's definitely the playboy party emperor that doesn't really give a fuck, who's the mischievous pig. And he's both of those things. And we'll get into it a bit later, but an acting touch I really liked. People, watch the scene again so you can note this down. When Londo is first greeted by him and Londo bows and all of that, Kataj is looking in the mirror and doing his hair and all of that. He turns around and there's a woman just sitting on the floor next to him near his legs. And while he's talking, Katarja, the actor grabs, like, he points out his finger and wipes it between her lips. Just so casually. Like, no, like, there was no drawing attention to it. He just does it. It's almost a blink and you'll miss it performance choice there, but I noticed it this time and I cheered. I went, yes. But Katarja, Rachel, let's talk about him because he's a big deal. They've been building up to the Emperor. Now, did you ever think we would meet him? Because we went 2 seasons without meeting him, and went 2 seasons without meeting the first one, or season a bit without meeting the other emperor. Did you actually think we were going to meet the new emperor, and did you have any thoughts going on if you did think that?
I didn't think from the start that we would meet him. Definitely not quickly. But as soon as Londo got the job back on Centauri Prime, I was like, I feel like we're going to meet him soon. I just was like, this is the escalation of this thing. Especially because he directly refers to the Emperor when he's chatting with Via about the job that he's been given and doesn't want.
He's the Mad Emperor.
Yes.
And you are a teacher and you mark stories, and you have talked about previously you're examining what makes a good story and character and stuff. And I want to hear from you, at least on an individual level, why it is that the Mad Emperor character is one that is always a fascination for the viewer. Because I swear that whenever there's a Mad Emperor character or a Mad Leader character, one that is like this, they are always something that draws in a crowd. Why is that? Even from historical studies, like we talk more about Caligula and Nero than we do Tiberius. Because Tiberius was like a fucking asshole who killed people, but he wasn't insane like they were. He was just ruthless. So like, why in media and history terms do you think we are just drawn towards the Mad Emperor type?
Well, we enjoy seeing people in power. So there's the base level of that. We enjoy seeing crazy people. So, and we enjoy seeing the elite be foolish. And crazy emperors bring all of that together. And more.
I like a crazy emperor story because it means that we're going to have to follow characters that will have to try their darndest to take them down. And that will be a challenge because they're the most powerful person. But eventually when we do take down that crazy emperor character, it will be extremely satisfying because they've done so many horrible things. But what I like about a crazy emperor character is they're given the unlimited power. They're given the keys to the car, and they're going to do the most ludicrous things possible. They're going to do the most horrendous things.
They can be unpredictable in a very reasonable way.
And in a voyeuristic way, we want to see that. We want to see what happens in a narrative, and looking back history-wise, what happens when you hand a person, one that is somebody who should not be given this authority, and what happens when we have that person be in charge and they burn down the city, or they do all of these crazy things, because on a sick human level, that's exciting. It's just fun. It's like, we shouldn't want it, but there's a reason why Caligula and Nero are still talked about all these years later, because they're fun characters to think about. And that's how we look at them. Characters. They were real people. They did real horrible things to real people, but we look at them because they were so ludicrously over the top villainous that you almost detach from the level of seriousness there is. Yet when we have them in narrative, there are those brief emotional sharp turns, like you mentioned, with Londo getting the knife pulled on him and against his throat, that brings you back down to, oh right, this isn't fun. It's actually scary.
It's dangerous.
It is extremely dangerous. And the actor has a ball playing this role, and we're going to talk about him for the spotlight, so don't worry, people. We will have plenty more to say about that performance, but he's made a deal with the Shadows to give off a
chunk of land for living godhood.
Well, yes, so that they could have a base, because obviously they need to start moving around different places now that Zahadum's been directly attacked, and they need other people to be shields for them, so that they could hide behind them, because they're cowards.
Yes.
And they're sneaky, slippery bastards. And yes, he wants godhood.
I've known it all my life. It is what I was born for. And when the time comes, Mollari, the people will gladly lay down their lives that I may be elevated to godhood. What are a few million lives compared to the glory of becoming a living god?
What is wonderful about Katarja's insanity is what Mr. Morden said about it, which is, if there's a madman on the throne, it's because you and Reefa put him there, which kicks Londo in the gut because it's true, but on a level as well, isn't Katarja the unbridled, uncensored, amoral embodiment of a part of what Londo wants? Doesn't Londo want to be a god himself? Like, doesn't a part of Londo as a character want to be remembered and revered and all of these things? Not in this exact manner, but at the same time, how many lives, how many moral lines has Londo crossed to get what he's gotten now?
It's the stepping stone. So, like, Londo is on one end of the spectrum, Reefa is further along it, and then Katarja is further along again. All of them want power, all of them want control, all of them want reverence.
All of them have a nostalgic, glorious view of their colonialist, imperialist, bloodthirsty past that informs them of what to do now. And they all have different, but in common, selfish motivations to achieve those goals. It's just the varying degrees of morality, where Reefa had no morality and he didn't care. That's the difference. He didn't care. He was just selfish. He was a selfish person. He was motivated for his own greed and power. You almost feel like he's a worse evil than Katarja, but Katarja is far more unpredictable, which makes him more dangerous in the short term as well as the long term. But he's a guy
Reefa acted in response, like he didn't plan things; he seized opportunities. Whereas Katarja creates the opportunities for himself,
and he is unable to make any decisions coherently because he's incoherent as a person. Londo has a wonderful exchange with Via where Via asks, does anyone else know he's mad? He's like, of course they do. He's a crazy person. He just says these things like that he's talking about the weather. He's a loudmouth. So, yeah, but no one can move against him because he'll kill you and cut off your head and stick it on a table where he talks to them late at night. And were you happy? Were you thrilled that in this same episode we got told about the heads on the table, that we actually got to see the heads on the table? Because I know I was.
Yeah. I was like, oh, we're actually doing this.
What a joy of a character Kataja is. He makes you sit up and go, oh, this is a story. Him being so evil that Londo and Via have to team up and kill this guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's an arc I want to watch. Mr. Morden survived.
He's crumbling.
I always forgot when watching Zahadum to even consider if Mr. Morden died in that explosion. I just never considered, because they never showed it and they never emphasized it. So I always assumed, oh, Mr. Morden, yeah, I'm sure he'll make it because he's such a...
Yeah, we didn't see his dead body.
Or his reaction, yeah.
He wasn't close enough to the blast. So.
Well, he was. He was like well, we don't know how far Sheridan walked away from that room, but... it's always been a thing that I forgot. And then when this episode comes in and he's a ghoul, he's Dr. Doom, he's a ghoul, he's just this charred remains of Mr. Morden, I always go, oh yeah, that's right. You were there, weren't you? And you survived.
See, I remember this. I remember the way that the actor plays with the clay that's all over him and like picking it off. Because, like, his entire body is, like, scabbed over with this stuff.
It looks very similar to what Delenn had when she broke free of the chrysalis. That almost lizard-like, reptilian, but also stone-like skin that's all over him. Now, Ed Wasser, he is doing my favorite type of acting, what I call my guilty pleasure acting, which is when a very handsome person is made up to be grotesque and they're having the time of their life. He is full ham. He's insane. He's unhinged. If there's ever a performance that I would call truly unhinged within this episode, it is Ed Wasser as Mr. Morden. There's that bit where he starts singing where he's like, ashes to ash, like we all fall down, and his eyes are wide, and he even says he's a shadow of his former self, and he even says shadow with, like, a knowing, like, this is silly for me to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Like,
I'm going for the pun anyway.
Like, in season 2, when he said, beyond a shadow of a doubt, there was more of a quietness to that being dropped, but here he really leans into it, like, I'm a shadow of my former self. Like, even to him, this is all nonsense. Like, everything that he held together for himself is now gone, and he's just untethered madness. And what do you think about Morden and what he offers up here? Just all of it, because when you start the show, you don't think that this is going to be somewhere you go with the character at all.
Yeah. I love it. It's utterly ridiculous, and it means that we're a step closer to seeing his head on a spike.
I fucking love how wild it is that Mr. Morden survives this blast. He's this charred carcass of a man because he's Mr. Handsome. He's his face and his voice. He's Mr. Suave, and he's going to convince you because he's ever so charismatic. What happens when you take that away? And not just on the aesthetic level, but like he as a person no longer feels like that guy anymore. That's why he says there's a shadow of him, of his former self. Like he no longer has that. When you've met one Sheridan, you've met them all. Like he got fucked over by the Sheridans and their stupid drama. He's Mr. I'm here for the shadow ideology, but damn, I got screwed over because of those silly old Sheridans. I just like seeing the cracked version of this suave motherfucker. Just this beautiful man is now just this despicable, oozing, bloody goopy guy, and he's picking off his skin and he's flaking it on the ground and it moves in the wind, and there's weird music that accompanies that, by the way. It's just so fucking wild that we go from Morden being this dude that comes on the station mysteriously saying, what do you want?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want? To now he's so close to...
off.
Yeah, now he's just basically a charred corpse walking around threatening Londo and cornering Londo to do worse things because you're afraid, Londo. You're a coward. You're worried what somebody else would do with this. And so you'll do it because I know you'll do it. We have a relationship, you and I. And could you imagine how fucked you would have to be to have someone like Mr. Morden, the way he's now, looking at you saying, we have a relationship, you and I.
And I have power over you.
I have power over you. Peter Jurasik, the episode should actually be titled not The Hour of the Wolf, but the sad, shocked, and haunted face of Londo Mollari. Because there's like 16 shots in this episode of Londo looking absolutely mortified.
When he's watching the shadows fly over.
The vision came true.
Oh my god.
Or when Kataj is going full mad emperor on the throne and how he's talking about being a god and Londo is just slowly backing out of the room and he just has his jaw is practically on the floor.
He is insane. Great Maker, forgive us all, he is mad.
It is not wise to say such things aloud, Londo. Others have said the same and disappeared.
Is it time, Rachel, for us to get into the spotlight?
Yes.
Not us specifically. Him. Kataja. The actor.
We're going to shine it on him.
We're going to shine the spotlight. What is the spotlight section of the show, Rachel?
The spotlight section of Yum Yum 5 is where we choose to highlight a particular performer in the episode, usually a guest star. And this week we have elected...
Yeah. Kataja.
Kataja.
Whose actor's name is Wortham Crimmer?
Yes.
Or at that time his name was that. I can't remember if it's pronounced Wortham.
Mm-hmm.
It's a peculiar name because it's also somebody's last name.
Yeah, it's not his real name.
Yes, and
It's
so
his stage name. Do you know how he got that?
his wife's maiden name.
His first wife.
Yeah, his wife at that time's first name is...
Maiden name.
Yes, I said it correctly, and then you corrected me, and then I have to...
Sorry, but
give me a fucking... No. We're here now. We're in the muck. It's his wife's maiden name as his first name. Why? I don't know. That's just... I've never seen an actor do that. I think it's cool. I think it's interesting as hell.
Odd.
It's a weird. It's a weird last name to make your first name as an actor too.
No, but it's
like he already has a weird last name, Crimmer.
There's another weird thing to it, which is that unusual for the time. Apparently, he changed his last name when he got married, so his wife became Wortham Crimmer, and that was his last name as well. So he then started acting under what was his last name.
Okay.
But using his first last name as his first name and then his last name as his last name.
I'm lost. I can't keep track. None of what you said made sense to me, and I'm not going to try. Wortham, whose real name is Robert Crimmer.
Yes.
Is Kataja.
But he was also...
I can't...
he's lived by many names, Ryan.
Can we just say this? What is his deal? Because I looked up on IMDb. I've never seen a Babylon 5 actor with the birth year 19 question mark. He doesn't have a birth year?
53.
No. Go to IMDb right now. It says 19 question mark.
Wikipedia said 53.
Where did that come from? Well, what is...
Well, see, okay. I know that...
Okay, let's bring it down.
It's 53 because
You've been stalking him. I know. You've done some research, and I just want to say this guy is as bizarre as the character himself. He's hard to pin down. There's barely any interviews with him in general. He was a lawyer. He was training to be a lawyer, then became an actor, then stopped being an actor to become
scholarship.
Yeah, then stopped being an actor to then be a lawyer, and now he's retired. And we'll get into all the nitty-gritty about that, but let's just go into that performance, because that is one of the things we all love about Katarja is the over-the-top but hyper-specific performance. He looks like what you imagine Caligula to be. I think that's one of the reasons they cast him, was that he looks like a young Caligula. He has the short crest. He barely, if ever, blinks. There's only 1 or 2 times he blinks in the episode, so he has these wide open eyes. His physical look is very imposing, but also offsets you because he does look like a young guy. He looks like a young guy. Next to Londo and the minister, he has this fresh-faced quality to him. And he has these, I don't know if you feel this way, he has these very unusually round eyes. Like super round eyes. So when he has them constantly open and staring daggers through every character, it makes him very scary. And I love the performance of Katarja. It's one of my favorite minor guest star performances or recurring guest star performances. He's funny, he's charismatic, he's cruel and vindictive and scary, and he
fully Centauri.
I'll give them this. The strength that he has as a performer of this character, and it's more exemplified in future episodes, but it is here. He knows as an actor how to do the sharp, sudden transitions of emotion that a lot of emotionally unstable people have.
Yeah.
I've seen some emotional the volatility, but also just like those dramatic mood swings. He portrays those in a way that is fairly realistic, but also perfectly in line with what the character is needing. There are just moments within the character of Katarja where what scares you is how well the actor goes from happy to angry, or from angry to sad, and just there are even times, brief times, where you go, this isn't his fault. He's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's not enough. So I'm a big fan of this performance. Always have been, always will be. Now, what about you? What do you think about the Katarja performance?
I love how sleazy he is.
Oh yeah, he's a sleazeball.
He's a sleazeball who thinks that he's slick.
He thinks he's smarter than anybody else.
Yeah, he thinks he's got it all figured out. And the thing that kept on going through my mind is this: he's such a nutter. He genuinely believes that the shadows can give him godhood.
And that he's playing them. Like, he thinks he's playing them so that he could achieve this.
Yes, he's like, I got the sweet end of this deal. I got the universe figured out and I'm going to become a god. And you're just like a little bitch and I'm going to be a god.
Did you have a favorite scene or particular moment from him within this episode specifically?
The, like, you forget your place, Londo. Is great. I went with that because there are other standout moments that we've already acknowledged.
I love the heads on the table.
The heads on the table is it, right? Like, that's it.
I think it's when he's on the throne and he's talking about how he will eventually rise to godhood, and he's just talking to Londo, but he's talking past Londo. He's not even looking at him properly, and he says, when I'm a god, I'll be able to forgive you, and then my powers will be infinite, but until then, I will just try to
my presence.
I will try to forget it. And just, he's fucking so intense.
Yes.
And yet it's a level of intensity where I don't feel genuinely afraid of him, but more I'm clapping my hands together going, yes, baby, daddy likey. I want to see more of this guy. I want to see more of this, because a thing about the Centauri characters are they are the level of corrupt where you are just excited to see more of them. They're just that level of corrupt, and that's what makes their specific brand of fascism or nationalism or like imperialism kind of confronting at times, because we talk about that with Londo all the time. Like Londo, we start out with him as this fun-loving guy. We feel for him, we root for him, we hope the best for him. Then he does all of these atrocities, and we are conflicted about that. And a part of the confliction there is the Centauri clowns. They're fun. They're foolish. They're so over the top wonderful that we can't help but be enamored by them. So even when we get to this point where they've done so many horrible things, and we are still morally against them, we can't help but be enthralled to see the level of depravity that they're going to delve into. And Katarja, he's a linchpin of that. He's the emperor.
It's only going to get worse.
Do you have just a favorite Katarja? When you think of Katarja in general, when you think of him in general, what is the thing? Like, out of all the episodes, what's the one you go towards of like, that's what I love Katarja or remember Katarja for?
I think it's the heads. But not this one where we see
when he brings Londo in?
Yes.
I love that, where he offers Londo like some candy. He's like, Londo's like mortified, and he's like, yeah. So this minister was just suggesting, Snicks? And he's like, ugh. My favorite, because of just the level of just cruelty, is when he's getting Jakar whipped in front of him.
The hollow whip.
The electro whip. The hollow whip from Red Dwarf. But the lighting on that, and just the close-up of his face counting, and then when he finally gets the scream he wants, he has this rictus, almost mannequin-like grin on his face.
It's too wide.
It is just too... Yeah, and that's what I think of, and that's because it's probably the most... upsetting that character is. Like, the heads on the table, like, that's a grotesque thing to do, but again, it's that level of... We want the mad emperor to be that level of insanity, but to see him counting the whips,
so much joy and satisfaction from somebody else's pain.
Because when Jakar's getting tortured, the violence, the pain that is inflicted there is played for realism rather than dramatic fun, which the heads on the table is played for dramatic fun of, let's wipe this one's nose because he has a runny nose and that. But I just wanted to reference that because we're going to see more of Katarja, but since we're doing the spotlight on him, I just wanted to know, for this actor and character, what was the go-to. And so it's good to know that we have two different ones. So I'm going to say I've never seen this actor in anything else.
Neither have I.
I know of things he's in, Days of Our Lives, and I can't remember the other soap opera he was in. It's one where he plays a reverend, and
it's like one something.
And so I know some of the shows this performer has been in, but I haven't watched them myself. They are not things that I engage in as strongly, but it's just interesting to see the actor not as Katarja, just seeing photos and video of him not as this character, because I'll say it for myself, I wouldn't recognize the guy straight away without the crest on his head. It is surprising how much the hair does a lot of work. Even with his, that's a little hair, and the big silly emperor outfit that he has on. I looked at these clips of him in other things, conventions and acting, and I almost didn't recognize the guy. He looks far more nerdy, is what I would describe. He looks far more like a guy that would very, very much be into alternative rock, is how I would describe him. So I just wanted to reference that because I know you did a lot more research into the performer and looking at things he's done and what he's become now and over the years. But I was just curious of if you've seen him in anything and just what it's like to even see what the guy looks like outside of being Katarja.
No, it's weird to see him older. Like in the photos that were in the 90s and closer to when he did Babylon 5, because this was the second last project he was in for like television or film.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, like, I've never imagined you being old.
He's frozen in time for you.
Yes.
Because this is the only thing you've ever seen him in, and he doesn't have works that are beyond this, really. Like, the last thing he did was in 2010, and that's because he's in a soap opera where he appears like once a year. So he's in this soap opera.
Marry or bury people.
Yeah, so he's in this soap opera, One Life to Live. So once a year for 16 years, he would show up. And so he was a character that people like and remember and look fondly on. And I know some of our listeners, we've even had emails come in about soap opera fandom, and that Babylon 5 would get a lot of these soap opera actors because not only are they available and they can be talented actors, but you need people to learn lines real quick. You hire soap opera actors because they have to learn lines, they have to hit their marks, and they have to do these things super quickly and super efficiently. So for a casting end, you imagine for something like Babylon 5, they would get soap opera actors because they need people to come in and do these things super quick. Because that was a part
efficiently for the sake of budget as well.
And also Babylon 5 just had a very tight shooting schedule. These actors often talk about the main cast and the supporting cast and the guest stars often talk about the pretty good hours that they would get to work with Babylon 5, that they would be done by this certain time and they can go home and have dinner or whatever it is. They weren't having to shoot like late into the night. For the makeup, for the people in the alien makeup, they would have to arrive early, of course, but the actual shooting of stuff was pretty good, pretty tight. So Wortham Crimmer or Robert Crimmer, we've not seen him in anything ourselves, but he has been tied to previous projects that other actors of Babylon 5 have been in. He even comments about this himself because he, as a performer of stage and screen, has had relationships, whether it be with people in the production side of Babylon 5 or fellow cast members of the episodes. So for this guy, he came in and this was almost like a family for him already, where there was a level of trust and comfort and just security of, I can do this because I'm around people who know me and what I can do, and they'll tell me if I need to draw back on that. And that's really neat to know. So I believe you have that available in your notes, that kind of sentiment, that quote.
Yeah, I have a different part from that same post that goes into a few like
background
quotes and details about his performance in Babylon 5, because like I found that interesting, but I found it more interesting that the way that he does Kataja is not what he did in his audition.
He held back a bit in his audition.
And the quote from him that I have is, "You bring as much of the character as you can to the audition, but not all of it." So when I went in and started performing the part, the character had a lot more sick humor.
Like the finger in the mouth,
than I think Joe had necessarily envisioned. But he began to get into it to the point where the third episode, he was writing shtick for Kataja.
Yeah. JMS, he adapts. He gets the strengths of these performers and he weaves it into the material, and it makes it all the more beneficial. If you're so stringent on these things need to be exactly like this, you can make a sterile, lifeless thing, and that can happen, especially within this genre. There was a quote I saw when it was talking about that one of the women, I think one of the set designers or production people, he knew from theater, and they were the girlfriend of Wayne Alexander, who he did Shakespeare with. So it all kind of connects, and then him and Bruce worked on an episode or two of Scarecrow and Mrs. King. He was in a few episodes of Hill Street Blues, so he knew Peter. So him and Peter already had a little bit of a rapport with one another when it came to acting. And he just knew a couple of other people here and there from just being around, just being a part of the theater scene and being a part of just soap operas. Like he already worked with Richard Biggs in, I think, Days of Our Lives, or one of those soap operas. So again, he got to come in to a set where they're 4 years in. they're comfortable, this cast, they're comfortable,
Yeah.
they know what they're doing. And not only that, but he gets to come into that environment and also get to be a little bit more comfortable than I imagine other guest actors
Yeah.
get to be, because he knows
And
them.
he acknowledges that that's probably a reason why he felt so comfortable doing the part the way that he did, and the fact that it was different than what he got hired off.
I find the shorter crest allows me to leave the palace, walk in places where the nobility would never think of being seen for the scandal. The things I have seen. As you can see, I've started quite the trend. It's become all the fashion among the court. I suppose there are those that might object, but they remain silent because the emperor is always right. Is he not, Mulari?
That is our tradition.
So he's been under a lot of different names. So
Is he trying to run away from the
I don't
government?
know.
Born 19
But
question mark,
as Wikipedia says 1953, and there's another reason that I'll get to, then I believe that date lines up. But he came around to acting. So he started at college doing a law degree, and then got offered a scholarship at a very prestigious acting program. So he took up that opportunity and then worked in like stage, film, TV, entertainment in general for about 20 years.
Wow.
And this is his performance in Babylon 5 is very much the tail end of this. And it wasn't necessarily what he wanted. He doesn't seem to have chosen to step away from acting.
Oh, really?
No.
Because I just assumed that he stepped away from like the TV and film world and just went back to theater and then eventually became a lawyer, because that's what I've always known is he became a lawyer. He was previously studying to be a lawyer, then eventually, you spend 20 years doing acting and then you go back to law because you got to earn money and maybe the acting jobs are drying up. And
that's basically what was happening. So it was during a time in the 90s where a lot of actors were struggling to find work, and there's a really good article that was done with him in the late 90s, I think, about his transition to being a lawyer after being an actor. And he basically talks about how he felt like he was pushed out of the industry because he was of his age.
Okay.
That was one of the reasons why he was told that he was too old and expensive to be a regular cast member on the soap that he was doing, pretty much.
Yeah, because soap operas are very notorious for, like, the image of things. Like, you have to have a young, sexy cast and an older, sexy cast. You can't just have a guy who looks 49.
Yeah. He said it was just painful because I couldn't even get the jobs I could when I started.
It's interesting because this started to happen around when Babylon 5 was going on, and yet he's cast in Babylon 5 as like the young, baby-faced, freshly crowned emperor. And if you had to ask me, how old do you think this guy is in Babylon 5? I would say 33.
Yeah.
I was like, he's like 33, 34. So if he's the age that Wikipedia says, he's older than Bruce? Is that what's happening? Because I don't think Bruce is that old. Or maybe he's older. I can't remember where Bruce is. But like,
I can't remember
around
Bruce's age.
But around like Peter Jurassic's age, right? Like,
yeah, and there's not that much of a difference between the two of them.
Wow.
So he was kind of like, well, I'm not getting paid, and at this stage, I'm pretty sure he had his 2 kids. I think he got divorced a little bit after this, but he decided to go back to school and finish his law degree. And that was really uncomfortable because there were a lot of situations where he felt ashamed of going back to school at an older age, and the fact that he was older than some of his professors.
Oh yeah, I would understand that.
Really questioning his decision to go back and like start over, essentially. And I found it really nice the way that he explained it, because he would like go to work, then go to class, and then study until midnight and like rinse and repeat. So he was still working while he was going back and finishing off law school. And he said that he turned his notes into scripts and learned the law the same way that he used to study a script in New York, sometimes while walking through Central Park. The only difference was that he walked the bike trail from Oja to Ventura.
Wow.
I would simply say it until I understood it, because you can't memorize it until you understand it at a core level. So he turned the law into scripts and was like, well, it's all a story. So I just need to figure out the story and then I can memorize the story. And that's the way that he approached becoming a lawyer later in his life.
I read that while he was studying and doing all of that, he was somewhere in between there being a paralegal, like doing that as well. And so the world of acting is a lot of hustle. You have to go through, not just hustle and hassle. You have to go through a bunch of hoops. And if you're not like at a well-known name and you have a certain degree of like a certain pedigree, you're going to have to go through a lot of crap to get a job. And after a certain point, you do hit the wall like he does, where either the industry is pushing you out, the roles that you aren't getting, they just aren't enough of them, or they're just lesser than, or you just feel the burden of it, where you just go, I've been doing this for so long, I'm losing the love of the craft, and whatever the case may be. So I'm upset to hear that, because think about it, from his end, he just did a episode, like 5-episode stint on this show. He's fucking great. Fans love him. He went to conventions. He got to sign things. And yet at the same time, while all that's happening, his career's dying. Like, that's just such a fucking bummer. I hope that he at least looks back on Babylon 5 fondly and looks at this as positively as we the fans do. We all love him in this role, and whenever I do read about some of these guest actors or even our lead actors and how their careers haven't flourished and blossomed, it upsets me, because I love them so much. They mean so much to me as somebody sitting down and putting on a show and seeing that these wonderful performances, like this guy as Kataja is excellent. He truly is magnetic. You can't wait to see the character again. He's just excellent, and I miss him. I can't wait to watch the next episode so we can see him again. He's just fun. I
do have a little bit more about him, if you would.
Yeah.
You want to hear? So he, in 2018, he finished this like program of doing 52 hikes in a year, because he now lives in Nevada.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
At least last you checked. Wow.
So he had, like, since he, like, finished this thing, he got a little award, and there's a video of him getting it, which is very cute. It's like on the top of the mountain that he's just completed. And this is the bio that he wrote for himself. So I thought that I would share this. Prior to retirement, I enjoyed 2 professional careers spanning 40 years. 1, a career as an attorney representing California public agencies on environmental matters, and 2, a career as a theatre and television performer, perhaps best known for my long-running role as Reverend Andrews Carpenter's on ABC's daytime drama One Life to Live. In retirement, I work as a certified search and rescue volunteer with Red Rock Search and Rescue.
Oh, wow.
In addition, I am an avid hiker and a backpacker. Over the last 3 years, I have thru-hiked the Grand Canyon, both rim to rim and rim to rim to rim to rim. Zion National Park's West Rim, Virgin River Rim Trail, Ruby Crest National Recreation Trail, John Muir Trail, Tahoe Rim Trail, and most recently the 500-mile Colorado Trail. God willing, I intend to hike the 2,600-mile Pacific Crest Trail in 2019.
I hope you did.
I am grateful to my wonderful, supportive wife, Chris, and my 2 adult children for their patient support as I pursue my passion for an outdoor activity. And this was from 2018, and he says that his age was 64, and he joined the club because he recently retired and was looking for new aspiration and goals.
Wow, there you are. I've never heard an interview with this guy in relation to B5. I know that the Babylon 5 podcast tried to get one with him. Him and John Vickery are just very elusive figures. And William Forward is just someone that was very hard to find as well. I found William Forward, and I'd love to hear from him, but he does exist. I found him on the internet just to have an update on that.
And I really liked another quote that he had in a different place. I think it was the article that was about him going back and becoming a lawyer. And he's just like, Kimmer explained that your life is constantly circling to higher levels. Your life is not linear, he said.
I thought you should know. Today has been a very good day.
That is it. Now, for the Hour of the Wolf, how would you rate this on our system of
Yum,
yum being
yum. Yum.
Didn't even want to let me finish.
No, you told me I had to wait until the end of the episode and I couldn't hold it in anymore.
Rachel can't hold it in, guys. She needs to go, and I'm holding the door closed. Rachel has to let the yum all the way out of her. I give this a yum as well.
Yum.
What are we going to be talking about next time on Babylon 5, Rachel?
On the next Babylon 5.
Whatever happened to Mr. Garibaldi?
I wonder.
A friend never lets down another friend. Jakar intensifies his search for Garibaldi, his first ever non-Narn friend.
Yeah, that's true.
Meanwhile, Sheridan's search for a way out coalesces as he encounters the mysterious Lorien.
Not Lorien! Well, we'll talk about whatever happened to Mr. Garibaldi next time on YumYumPodcast. During that time, you can follow us on the social media of your choice under YumYumPod or YumYumPodcast. We make sure to include all of that in the description below, including our email address, where you can contact us more directly at yumyumpod@gmail.com. We are going through so much content at the moment, giving you guys all the goods, but we have some goods that we're holding back for our patrons on Patreon. Yes, you can join our Patreon where we have a bunch, and I mean a whole slew of bonus content where we're talking about movies, we're talking about TV shows, video games. We have a group Discord that you can be a part of where you can share some jokes around and converse with your fellow Yumlings on a deeper, more nuanced level. On there, people make jokes about Rachel's suffering, and I laugh and laugh and laugh, but you're missing out on that if you aren't a part of our Patreon. So come on over. Come on, it's a new year. Give us some new patrons while you're at it. It would be so cool. We're covering space above and beyond on our Patreon. So if you are wanting to hear people talk about that show, or you've been wanting a reason to watch it yourself, well, we're over there talking about it, like we're doing with talking about Babylon 5. But that is all we have got for you. You can go now. You can rate and review the podcast.
Good eating to you. Bye.
Good. Oh, Rachel. No, don't go over there. Oh, she slipped over the puddle of yum she left, and now she's gone. I guess I'll have to say good eating to you, Yumlings. Good eating to you.